I'm a refugee in Ireland. A refugee that have left Afghanistan years ago. A refugee that had a fantastic job providing humanitarian and development services and programs to the poorest of the poor in rural parts of Afghanistan. A refugee that I was able to help hundreds of thousands of people who had never been educated and who had never access to schools, literacy, or any kind of formal or informal education. I was able to enroll thousands of girls, particularly where there was no access to a school at all, and they had the opportunity to learn. Unfortunately, things started changing, and some of those schools were shut down, and they never had the opportunity to access those schools. At the same time, I was also involved in securing millions of euro to rehabilitate and to construct irrigation canals, provide drinking water supply to people, to the poorest of the poor, and provide other kind of programs to improve women participation in the society, girls' education, girls' programs, equality, addressing racism and improving diversity in the society. And all of those programs I was involved, and I was most importantly on a very top position, managing hundreds of staff members in the fields who are delivering these programs. And unfortunately, the darkest times of Afghanistan was just rising, and I was seeing the darkness is just coming, approaching. And then as my access to some of these program areas were being restricted, and as the attacks and risks increased on myself with narrowly escaping some of these ambushes, I realized that there is no more chance for me to be in this country. In this country where I had my family, my brother, my sister, my nephews, my uncles, my gardens, my houses, my car, and I had the social connections and the fact that, I had this relationship with the whole national level United Nations organizations and embassies and so on. I had to leave all of those, and because of just to survive and to be able to live a bit longer, so I had to think of immigration and leaving my home. And there was opportunity. I was one of the luckiest person, I can say, that I was able to seek refuge in Ireland. And the moment I arrived in Ireland, I was put in a system called direct provision system, where I was housed. And I was living in a room with many other asylum seekers. The situation was very tough, and the life was it was a disaster for me, because I came seeking refuge, peace and safety, but I was left in a place where I didn't feel safe, and I didn't feel that is somewhere I could sleep, I could relax. However, I managed to be there, and I managed to, even in that time, I managed to help others who were in the same situation as I was. And finally, the life started changing a little bit toward positive, and I got my refugee status, and I got a job, and then I tried to bring my family who were left in Afghanistan with difficulties and with so much cost. I managed to bring my family, and then my family was defined that it's my wife and children. And then once they came, I tried to find a home for them, a place where they could be safe and they could have a roof over their head. So I put them in school, I put them in different courses, and they managed to find their way into the society. And then at the same time, the situation in Afghanistan started deteriorating. Even 10 years before I had expected, and I was very, very critical of the situation in Afghanistan. What I was seeing, I was saying to myself that this international forces and Afghan National Army is going to be gone if this is the way the Taliban are fighting. Because the Taliban, I felt 10 years ago that they were so strong. They were managing, I thought, the whole of Afghanistan, and the international forces and the Afghan forces, they were only patrolling and looking after the roads and the highways, and they had no control in the rural parts of Afghanistan. And I knew that this Afghanistan cannot stay. If the international forces leave Afghanistan, next day the Taliban will take Afghanistan. Because even in the time that they had hundreds of thousands of forces, they were not able to manage all parts of Afghanistan. It was the Taliban and the other fighters that they were controlling Afghanistan. So unfortunately, my estimations came true, and when international forces left Afghanistan in a matter of week time, the fighters took control of Afghanistan. And now imagine what has happened there. Afghan women, which makes 52% of the total population, they are abandoned. The elder ones, they're abandoned to access education. They don't go to universities. They don't go to secondary or high school. And they cannot work. They are abandoned. They're banned from working, mainly in the public sector, particularly with men, with few exceptions there. And I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future in Afghanistan. My thinking would be that, my hope would be that there would be some kind of reform among the Taliban, where they could allow women to be back to life, to have access education, to be at work, and to allow them to be who they are, because you cannot just exclude the majority of the population in that country, which is women. So still it's very dark. I don't know when there would be a light, but I'm optimistic. If the international community is in dialogue, if they engage, if there is support going to that country, there will be some hopes of change. However, very recently, the other part of the story I can say is that after the collapse of Afghanistan into the hand of Taliban, I tried to bring my brother and his family who are in danger, who are at risk. In those times, the whole of Afghan population whose lives were in danger, they were trying to find a way out, and they were trapped there. The borders were closed, and there was no flights going out of Afghanistan. So we were in desperate situation. My brother and his family left home, everything behind, and they were trying to find a way, go out. And through some friends and an Irish charity, I applied to bring them over to Ireland. They got the paperwork to come, but they were said to find their way to the airport in Kabul to get onto the American military evacuation planes. Unfortunately, they couldn't. Although I was trying to send their GPS points where they were living, so there was promises that they would be picked up by cars and brought to the airport. And they were changing their location to be as close as possible to the airport, and that didn't happen because the situation was so bad over there. And just next day there was explosion, and over 200 people, children, men, women, they were slaughtered. And there was a river just next to the site where was the explosion happened, and the whole river seemed red because of the blood of human being washed there at the airport site. And that was a disaster where my family completely, they were destroyed. They thought that, there's no way out and they are trapped, they will be killed. And they didn't have the travel documents to travel later on as well. However, very recently 3 of them were managed to leave Afghanistan because they had the travel document and the other ones they don't. And I hope that there will be travel documents soon for them, so I could help them to come out as well.